Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. And today I have a guest to do this insecure recap with me. Finally, somebody, not me just talking to myself and you guys. So we're gonna get started, but I know this is my best friend Nija, and I think you just caught up this week. So tell me your thoughts to this far to episode 5. What's your thoughts on season the first 4 episodes?
Oh man, so much. I kind of feel like I like the progression of Molly. I like where she's going. She's kind of learning herself, kind of trying to change some of the more negative things about her, and kind of take ownership. Um, I think Issa's still kind of floundering a little bit, which I'm disappointed to see. I kind of thought she'd be pulling it together a little bit. Yeah, that symposium, that was cringy. That when she was up on stage talking about her business, that the block, that was cringy. Um, and so that I'm a little bit disappointed with Issa now. I kind of also don't really like what happened with her and Lawrence. Now, while I kind of get it, I kind of feel like, did she have to split up with him? I mean, he's coming back and forth anyway. She kind of could have been support for him, or maybe they could have supported each other. But I kind of like her with Nathan too. So I don't know. I'm a little bit on the fence about that one. Now, Condola, ooh, child.
I know you had thoughts about Condola and her
Yeah, ooh,
sister.
child. She's dead wrong.
I felt like she was dead wrong too because this was my thing, and I know a lot of people. I mean, I also feel like Lawrence is wrong, but you also know, like, I'm not. I've never been like Team Lawrence. I'm not part of the Lawrence hive, but the reason why I felt Condola was really wrong is because she set the system up the way that it was. She's the one that told him, "You can be in this or out this. I don't need you. Do it however you want." And then when it came back to bite her in the butt because she set the system up that way, she got upset and then tried to keep control of everything.
And when she said that, was she expecting him to what, be checking on her throughout the pregnancy,
That's
or
what I was getting from the way she was acting. I was like, she really thought that he should have been like, and I'm not saying that he should not have been, but it was your words that told him that he could basically check in when he felt like it.
right? I mean, they weren't in a relationship, so that kind of makes it difficult to just be checking in on somebody when you don't really have a connection. And they're the ones who waited until she gave birth to message him. Like, she could have hit him up and said, "Hey, I think I'm having contractions or something." You know what I mean? Like, giving him the opportunity to be there for the birth. They didn't even give him that opportunity.
But somebody else said that that's kind of like a symptom of the disease of him not being there during her pregnancy, but they
That's
also
true.
were not in a relationship. So it's kind
But
of
if
like,
that's the case, then why even message him once you have it?
that's also a good point. That's also a good point. I just feel like, where she was wrong is she should have been like, I know this is not what either of us wanted, but you need to be there if you're going to be there for your child, right? I think she wanted to be like different and say, "I don't need you," and
But here's the thing. I get all that from before you had the baby, but once he said, "I want to be here,"
but that's where I was gonna say that's where it's Lawrence's fault because he wasn't there, right? He wasn't there consistently. Like, he was blowing off flights, he wasn't coming in consistently, and it was like once guys, they
but wait a minute, that was after she was acting funny about him being with the baby, though. So it was petty what he did.
but I don't think that's what it was. I think he was just like, guys focus in on the baby when it gets here, right? Because it's an actual physical child, and it's like, oh, I could do something. I think the issue with him was he did not realize that he needed to be there. He thought he could be there when he felt like it, especially since she was saying, well, I don't need you for that because it's already scheduled, or you know what I mean? Instead of
Yeah.
him saying, no, I'm going to be there more, he's like, well, she already got it planned, so I'll just come when I can come.
Yeah, I disagree. I kind of felt like he started to get kind of petty when he started asking to take the baby and she was like, no. Um, because like from jump, he got so happy, set up that little crib in
Mm-hmm.
his office and stuff like that. And if he's setting up a crib, he's expecting the baby to come
Right,
with him,
right.
So for me, it was more so he got angry when she said the baby couldn't come and he started being petty.
I think he got angry when he fed the baby food and she he like,
Well, that too. I mean, all of that was,
yeah,
it started with them acting funny when he asked to hold the baby. Then it
right,
was, can I take the baby? Then it was, I don't know about that. Then it was, we take the baby to the party and I fed the, now again, he some people say, hey, let him parent. I'm like the same way. Hey, you can't feed the baby all crazy. You know what I mean? It's a little baby, but,
right.
um, I mean, I am learning from other people. Sometimes you just gotta let the other parent.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. I think that's where she went wrong, and I definitely feel like him not being consistent. And I understand his thought process. He got this job. He wanted to keep this job. We all know his background. I don't know if she knows his background, where he was coming
right. I
from, right?
mean,
Where he was working at Best Buy. He was sleeping on Issa's couch, doing
right.
nothing, and
I'm
that
sorry. I just can't
also.
be that mad at Lawrence right now. He took that job before he knew about the
Right.
baby.
But that is also why I don't blame Issa from cutting out, because she has been in this place before with Lawrence where she was the one supporting him and she was struggling and she was getting no support. So she was starting this new business. We both know, we saw her at the conference. She didn't know what she was in the in between. She didn't
Yeah,
know
she
which
doesn't
way
have
she was
time for
going to
his
go.
mess.
He
You're
did
right.
not have time to be his support
You're
system.
right.
She
You're right.
needed him to be her support system just as much. And she did not, has never seen that from Lawrence. He's
Hmm.
never been her partner. And they
Right.
were in a relationship for like 5 years.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. That was that last scene.
Yeah.
That's what that showed. The fact that she saw him there with Condola supporting with the baby, like that stung.
Yeah.
That stung
So
for her. I
actually,
felt really bad for her in that moment.
as you said, let's get into this episode. So the episode starts with Molly in bed with someone. And so now I'm wondering if it's the same guy that's friends with Nathan for the last episode, because we don't really see his face.
Well, I tried. I tried really hard to see, and I mean, and I was sitting here watching it with with my husband. I was like, wait a minute, is that the same? Is that the bald guy, or is it that the last? I
Exactly.
don't think it's either.
No, she said it. She says it later in the episode. It was some rando.
Yeah,
So,
it wasn't. When I first saw it, I'm like, yeah, that wasn't either one.
so it's like kind of what you were saying before. I am happy with Molly's progression. I do feel like she kind of maybe swung the other way a little bit at this point. Like I think she was right in the way she started approaching dating, where less pressure, do kind of what she wants, see what she's feeling in the moment. But I mean, it seems like because she hooked up with the guy that she went on that Bumble date with, right?
Mhm.
She's hooking up. She probably hooked up with Nathan's friend. Now she's hooking up with some random guy. It's kind of like maybe the pendulum just like swung too far, just a hair too far, in my opinion. So I
Just a
think
tad, maybe. But I think the situation with her mother is bringing her back
exactly. And
down to
what I'm
center.
hoping is this situation also doesn't swing the pendulum the other way, right? But I do think that the conversation she had with Issa may have helped that. But
Hmm.
yeah, so we see her in bed with this guy. She tells him to spell her name. He starts spelling it. And she's like, "Why is there an A in my?" Oh, that is absolutely.
She's like, I'll roll with it.
like, oh, but it feels good to her, so she's like, she'll change her name. She does, climax, and then she starts getting vibrations on her phone, and she realizes she's missing phone calls from her dad and her brothers. The guy's trying to talk to her, and she basically tells him, be quiet. Um, and she calls back one of her missed calls. So then we see in the next scene, they're in the hospital, and it's Molly's brothers, her dad, and her aunt. And I still can't figure out, is this the aunt on her mother's side or the aunt on her father's side? They never kind of really say. It's kind of ambiguous, but
Mhm.
um, they're all like kind of just waiting in the hospital waiting area. Molly is of course pacing back and forth, in the same dress that she left the guy in. Her brother, her one brother remembers that the last thing he said to their mother. So then we realize it's her mother in the hospital bed. Um, that her dressing wasn't the best, and says, well, it wasn't, but why did he have to say it like that? And Molly says, well, you could tell her how much you loved it when she wakes up. And so then the doctor approaches, and the, Molly's just like, how is she? And the doctor says, there's absolutely no good way to say this, but there's nothing more they can do. And they need them to basically come and say their goodbyes. They're all super shocked. Molly's like speechless, and the doctor says, come on, it's time. And they rush out to the waiting room to a hospital bed that has someone dying in it, but it is not Carol, Molly's mother.
Wrong woman.
Wrong woman. Molly's dad says, how old do you think I am? Does this look like my contemporary? Which I thought was funny because I think that was so real because you're
Right. In
like,
the moment, it's like, why, does that's what you thought about? But yeah, still, it's like,
really, how old do you think I am? But um, the doctor's insistent that it is her. It's just that the stroke aged her, and they're like, no, that is not her. And just as Molly's insisting that who they're looking for, an orderly comes rushing in with the chart and basically says, that's not her. And the correct family comes in behind them. They give their apologies, and the doctor apologizes outside the room and basically says, oh yes, he's sorry they're upset, but I'll take you to her correct room. She's stable. So thank God for that, because it really, when the preview started, I was like, oh my gosh, if Molly loses her mom, I don't know what she's going to do. I still don't know what she's going to do, even where we leave off at the end of the episode. But I'm glad that, at least there was some hope, because I don't think if it was she was just gone, I don't think Molly would have been able to handle it.
mm-hmm.
So they take her to the room. She's stable. Molly tries to help her dad. The nurse is asking a bunch of questions, and he doesn't basically want to answer them. Molly kind of pulls the nurse aside and says, whatever needs to be done or answered, add me to the chart so that you could come to me for that information. So I think here we saw classic Molly just kind of take over, take charge. And it kind of feels like through the episode, what we get from it is that she's actually taking her mother's place in the family, because it seems like that's what her mother would be doing, and that's
Mm-hmm.
all. So that's all she knows how to do, is just be like her mini mom,
Mm-hmm.
right? um and then we see in the next scene, it's Issa's apartment, and it basically looks invaded. That's what I said. It looked invaded. We saw video games, sneakers, a bunch of stuff in the room. So I was like, okay, so what? Did Nathan move in? because I'm like, that would be the only thing that makes sense.
Right.
We do see Nathan come in with a cup of coffee to her bed, and he has just boxers on. And Issa's like, "Oh, bedside service. She could get used to it." Nathan says she's already must be because the last time he came to her bed empty-handed, she looked confused.
Right.
And so we see that there's just like this level of comfort that they've already come to. I'm not sure how far from the last time we saw them this is, but they do seem to have evolved into just this level of comfort where she's allowed him to start staying over her place, um, which kind of makes sense because I think he's probably still living with Andrew.
Hmm.
So it's probably easier for them to be together alone at her place where, nobody else is living. Um, so then we see they kind of go over their schedule for the day. And she's like, she's supposed to meet with Koya but she's sick because apparently her mother only fed her Trix yogurt when she was younger. And poor Koya, she's had a rough childhood. That poor
I
child.
like Koya though. I like Koya.
See, the best thing about Koya is she absolutely rides for Issa. No matter how crazy things get with Issa, she's
Yeah,
kind of
she's a
like,
good assistant for Issa.
yeah, she's like replaced Molly in that way, that she rides for her, but on a business level, right?
Right.
Like, but they're
And
probably
it's her job.
right.
So,
And it's her job.
at the end it's like she's not, you know, draining Molly with that. She doesn't have to put that stuff on Molly. She can just have Molly as her friend.
Exactly, which I love. I love that those. The best thing I think about this season is I love those drawing of boundaries that we're seeing for both of them. But I also love what has developed in their friendship. They've definitely just their friendship level in that we know that these two have been like ride or die for each other since the beginning. But I think a lot of it was in some toxic bad behavior ways.
Hmm.
And what we see is they've kept that part of the friendship that they are sisters to the end, but they've evolved the relationship to being less toxic, that they can really be there for each other in the proper ways.
Hmm.
So Nathan says he was about to go into work, but he doesn't have to. There's some cancellations. Issa says, well, does he want to spend time alone? So we see here that she's kind of starting to say, well, maybe we shouldn't be rushing this. Maybe he needs some time alone. Maybe I need to give him some space. Um, that mentions that, we did say that we would take it slower this time around. Um, so she's still kind of on pins and needles that we saw in the last episode, that she was like kind of tentative about where she wanted to take their relationship. She wants a relationship with Nathan, but she also does not want to go through the things that she went through with him as well as Lawrence, in that she rushed into these relationships, and he ditched her because of whatever was going on with him, and she had
Yeah,
to
I was
get
a
rid
little frustrated with him about that.
about Nathan.
Yeah, because like I was saying, okay, they obviously want to be together. But he's acting as though she doesn't have a reason to not voice that. You ghosted her. Like, come on. Like, she's not going to be the first one to say she wants a relationship with you, because when she went all in last time, you ghosted her. So, like, what do you expect, kind of? But I am glad that she got over it. One of them was going to have to say it. So, I'm glad that she got over it and said it so that they could get to this point. But at the same time, I kind of feel like he should have been the one to say it first, because.
I definitely agree with you, but we see that's also kind of his MO, maybe his toxic trait, in
Mhm.
that even with the conversation with his cousin last week, instead of him saying to his cousin, listen, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, that is why I was acting these ways, he would have preferred to show him, look at all the things that I've done and I'm doing, and I'm how much better I am, and hoping that his cousin sees that, and that, that will make up for whatever happened previously. And so it's kind of like the same thing with Issa, where he's like, I've been a friend to her, I've been stable, I've been there for her, she cried in my mouth, I'm still here with her. um, and that should be enough. And while I understand where he's coming from, we both know that as a grown adult, there has to be a point where you have to be vulnerable, and vulnerable enough to say either A, I fucked up and I'm sorry and I will be different, or this is what's going on with me. I'm not saying, that excuses my behavior, but I have a reason and I'm being vulnerable enough to tell you the reason.
Right.
Um, and so Nathan does bring up, oh yeah, you don't always fuck someone on the Ferris wheel on the second date, which I love, because to me that was like absolutely one of my favorite scenes.
When it happened.
But it did happen. But Issa says she has plans with Molly for lunch, and she's she's basically trying to say, hey, you're not really saying if you really kind of want to be with me, so I'm going to give you an out. I have plans already, you know. And he's kind of like, well, whatever you want to do. She's like, well, Molly does tend to reschedule on me, so um, during the work week. So let me just see what she's up to. And Nathan says, yeah, because can't get rid of an open reservation. So we see that they're kind of playing this cat and mouse game of, will she, won't she, will he, won't like, and which is kind of cute, but it's also kind of like they both have a wall up. They both have a wall up, and in order for them to get beyond, I think, where we last left them the last time they were in like a relationship, they both are going to have to let that wall down. But I don't know, when you have like just timing of somebody where you're like, it's like the right person but wrong time, because they have not evolved enough in their self in order to have the correct relationship with you. I
Mm-hmm.
just Sometimes I feel like that's where we are with Nathan and Issa. Like it continues to be a timing issue. Just like
Right.
they are the
I
right, they're the right people for each other, but they
Mm-hmm.
continuously like missing each other at the moment that each of them need them to be a certain person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Issa does say, let me give Molly a car, because I agree with you. What, that would be a waste. And she calls Molly and asks if they're still hanging out. And we basically only see her face drop. So we know that Molly basically tells her, you know, her mom's in the hospital. So
Right.
the next thing we see is Nathan driving Issa to the hospital. And again, Issa says, well, first she says that Molly's mom looked fine. And so, it's kind of a shock for her. And so we've been seeing these themes through the episodes. I don't know if you noticed it, that each of them keep having these life effects that are creating like things that are triggering their decisions, and how they're reflecting, and how they're basically reacting to these new things happening in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so she says she can't imagine how Molly's feeling, and Nathan says that he's sure that this will mean a lot, that Issa is there for her. And he offers to come back and pick her up, and Issa rejects the offer because, again, I think she's just got that wall up,
Right.
and she doesn't want to take up his day. But Nathan's like reassuring her that he knows that whatever she needs, he's there for. And they both did say, like in the car, that later, that they did end up calling their like mothers And so we see that,
Right.
it's forcing them to be vulnerable, but not necessarily vulnerable with each other.
Right.
Um, so then the next scene with Molly's aunt is harassing the nurses.
Right.
I have a cough, and she says a cough sounds one way, but now it's like sounding any another way. Could it be cancer? And I feel like what we're seeing in these hospital scenes is how everybody reacts to like the same thing
Right.
differently. And I
Right.
don't know if it's like position, like because again, I still can't figure out who is she, the sister, or is she the sister-in-law? Um, or and then Molly's dad is like, been the primary caregiver. Her brothers, we know that her brothers are always like going through stuff themselves, and then Molly's
Hmm.
being Molly. So is it just position or is it personalities? But I do feel like you're kind of seeing what people experience when they have to all deal with a family issue in the hospital. Some people check out, some people are like nonchalant about it and paying absolutely no attention to how everybody's feeling. Other people are just more concentrating on how they feel, and the other people are like it trying to take control of the situation and make sure that everybody and everything is okay.
Hmm.
Um, so we see Molly sitting there, and Issa arrives and asks her how she is, and how and her mother is apparently still unconscious. So she says they're just waiting. Issa like apologizes and asks how Molly's feeling, and Molly says she's good and trying to make sure everyone else is good. And so we go back to classic Molly. Everything's fine. I don't need anybody. I'm
Hmm.
just there to make sure everybody else is held together, right?
Right.
Um, and she's like, her dad is stress eating. Curtis's counting change that keeps adding up to 79 cents. Um, and and the best part about this is how Issa approaches the conversation, because I think that the way Issa goes about this conversation going forward is totally different than she probably would have approached the situation maybe not last year, 2 years before.
Hmm.
In that, instead of like trying to change her mind, take her mind off it by focusing on Issa, right? Like talking about her problems and she asks Molly,
What
"What
she needed.
do you need?"
Hmm. What she needed. Right.
Yeah, and Molly insists she's okay, but Issa knows her girl is not okay. So she comes up with, "Hey, how about I go get you some clothes?" And
Right.
and I was like, perfect. So we really, really do see this evolution of their friendship, because normally that is what we would have saw. My we know that Issa is kind of going through her own things with work and with Nathan. She's unsure about both, right? But she didn't put that on Molly. She's there for her
Hmm.
when she's supposed to be.
Right.
And because she's there for her right when she's supposed to be, Molly does take her up on that offer to go get her new clothes from the apartment. And then she also kind of does let her wall down a little bit and says, thank you, and admits to it all being a lot for her.
Hmm.
And she hugs her, and they tell each other they love each other. And Issa asks, while they're decide they're gonna switch clothes so Molly doesn't keep getting hit on while she's in that dress from the night before. She does ask if she fucked in this because she fucked in that outfit. So
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
I thought it was funny. But I really, really did love that scene, because I do feel like Molly, Issa was uh, allowing Molly to be vulnerable.
Hmm.
And I think Molly needed that in order to not go back to her old ways. But what are your thoughts?
I agree. I totally love the way Issa came, and was there for Molly, and but at the same time, Molly's also been there for Issa. Like when Issa had that uncomfortable moment when she did, that interview and she said everything that she said up on stage. Molly knew afterwards that Issa wasn't okay and that she kind of needed her in that moment. So she was there for her, once again. So I feel like it's just now that Issa's learning how to reciprocate, um, and do the same back. So yeah, I totally agree. I love that moment. And I love that Nathan was also there for Issa so that Issa could be there for Molly. So
Exactly. And so my whole thing is, can you imagine if Lawrence was in the situation?
true. Yeah, it would be a whole mess right about now. I agree.
Right.
I
Because
mean, that's what I said. Like, I don't know why I just like Lawrence and Issa together, but I know that Issa and Nathan are the better couple.
right, so that's
Um,
how I feel like. I feel like, and I know a lot of people because I've listened to other recaps and I've watched and read other things, and a lot of people are like, I don't know why we're in this Nathan situation. He's not it, and what they're not realizing is that Lawrence, while yes, him and Issa have amazing chemistry, right? We've seen it in season one. Season one, even when they were going through their problems, they had amazing chemistry. Even the season, was it the I think was it the first episode of season two or the last episode of season one where they like just started like going at each other, like and end up sleeping with each other. They have great chemistry, but just because you have great chemistry does not
mhm,
mean that you are the right person
mhm.
for each other. And that has been my entire issue with Lawrence. And I'm not saying he was wrong to dump Issa when she cheated on him, right? I've never felt like he was the person in any way able to support Issa when she needs support.
Well, the thing is that I don't really feel like either one of them were able to make each other be a better person. You know what I mean? Like,
That's yeah,
neither one of them really were a motivation for the other. Issa found that with Nathan. You know what I mean?
exactly.
So
And some
it's
people
both,
don't see it. They don't
right.
see it.
It's
They
for both
think
of them. They really, and if you can't be in a relationship and have the other person like push you forward, you know what I mean, help you excel. Like, what's the point?
right, exactly, and that's what people aren't seeing. People think that they just judged Nathan by his ghosting her, which was bad.
Yeah, the only problem I have with that, like I said, is that she just didn't know where to go from there. Like she put up a wall. You know
Right,
what I mean? But I didn't feel like that was something that they couldn't get over, or that was a reason to never deal with him again.
exactly. And there's some people who think that that was a reason to absolutely never
No,
deal
he's a
with him
good
again.
guy.
No, that's how I feel, because I feel like, and she said it last episode, he's the person that had her planted.
Hmm.
Like, he's the one that gave her purpose. He's the one that helped her evolve into what her business is, who she
Hmm.
wants to be. And I don't think if she didn't have, because Daniel wasn't ever able to do that. And, he had his own
Daniel wasn't
company.
about that. Daniel was about something entirely different.
Exactly. He wasn't able to do that. Lawrence, I think he wanted to be the person to do that, but he wasn't ever able to do that. And I think the situation he's in right now, he would not have been able to do that at this point anyway.
I'm kind of like trying to figure out where this whole thing is gonna go with Lawrence because I mean he is a mutual. They do have mutual friends. Um, I don't really know that I want to see him with Condola. I don't really see them being together either. So I'm
But do
just
you
kind of
think they'll
curious as
try?
to. I think they'll try. Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So that's what
Um,
I said last episode. Well, the episode with Lawrence and Condola, I said I can see them actually trying to actually, because they've never been in this situation. Sometimes you're like, well, maybe the best thing for us to do is to try to have a relationship, and kind of the same thing with the pendulum. Like, you go from one opposite end of the spectrum to the other and just decide, okay, we're just going to try to be together.
but that's why I don't think it will work because it didn't work anyway. Throwing a kid in the mix
nah. But
You
I
and I
mean,
both know, like, having a child is difficult, and if
yeah,
you don't already have, like, a bond of love, like, that's gonna make it 10 times more difficult, and so you can't just be together because you have a child. So
right.
if
And he
y'all
was
weren't
the
liking each
rebound
other
man.
before.
Remember, he was the
Huh?
rebound. He was the rebound man, right? He was the
Right,
rebound man from her divorce. So it wasn't
right,
like she was entering into that relationship because that was what broke them up. He wanted a relationship and she didn't. He was
right.
the rebound man. She wasn't really interested in it. So I agree. I don't ultimately see it happening in
But
that they
I
were
do
in
think
there.
she's the type that will try to have a relationship with him because they have a child together. I do think she would do that.
I agree,
I
especially
don't
with
think
her
it will work.
sister in her ear and all that stuff. Her mother
Oh
seems
yeah,
really supportive, but I can see the sister in her ear. You have Tiffany and her husband being such a solid couple with their child. I can definitely see them attempting it. I just agree with you that I don't think it's gonna work.
mm-mm.
So then we see Issa walks out of the hospital in the dress from the previous night. And a patient says she looks like a model, and the orderly basically tells her, "Oh, don't listen to her. She's high." And so all the feelings that you saw her have, it just kind of went away. She
Right.
probably
Well, thank you.
and then we see Nathan has returned for her, and she thanks him, and he asks how Molly is, and she's like, Molly's being Molly, running around, handling stuff. She knows she would be a whole mess if it was her in that position. Um, I know I probably would be a Molly because I have no choice, but and we know that you would be the Molly because you have no choice. It's just both of us would have no choice in that
Now
situation.
I've been there already, so yeah.
Exactly. And she called her mom and left a message, and Nathan admits to doing the same. And I think also that points out how much that Nathan does care about both of them, right? Because he's known Molly just as long, well, a couple months shorter than
Right. And
Issa at this point, and the fact that he even could think about that shows that I think just Nathan is a caring person.
he's a nice guy.
He is, and I've always said this in my recaps that I really do think that no matter um where they are in their life, even if Nathan is not her person, I think he will always be there for Issa,
Oh
as long
yeah.
as she allows him.
Well, that's already been evidenced by what they've been through. That,
Right.
and that's why everybody kept saying. I think even I don't remember who said it, but I know somebody mentioned it. Like, y'all still friends? Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
I think it was
even
Molly. I think it was Molly, like shocked that this,
yeah,
like, oh,
right.
I couldn't be friends with somebody I fucked, and I'm like, I well, from experience, I can, but you know what I mean. There's just it's a way to if the person is supportive of you, you can't help but want that in your life. And that's why I said that I think it'll always be on Issa to make that distinction of whether or not they will be in their life, because I think he'll always attempt for them to be in each other's life. Because I think he generally really does care for her. Whether or not who Issa's in a relationship with, if it's not him, is okay with them having that relationship, I'm not sure. So she might have to put that boundary up just to make whoever she's with comfortable.
Hmm.
Like if she does go back with Lawrence. Um so
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't think Lawrence would love it
that's what I'm
if she
saying.
went back. If she went back with Lawrence, he would not love her being friends with Nathan. I mean, he kind of already was like,
And then so then think about it. So as soon, well, not as soon. I don't want to say as soon because it's been what, at least 9 to 10 months, right? The baby is like what, 2 months old.
mm,
So maybe more. Maybe
maybe more from
so.
that last
So
scene,
got
the
to be
way
a
the baby
year.
was
So got
looking.
to be a year, right?
Mhm.
So it's been a year at this point. And you after a year of us not being together, you went right back to old dude, right? Like that you said was just friends. And so it's kind of like I don't think he will like it. I don't think he would want it to happen.
He's
So
not gonna love it.
he's not. So that's why I said I think it'll probably end up being on Issa to let the friendship go. And that's gonna be something she'll have to navigate if that's the case,
But
right?
we see there are definitely some feelings there. There were some feelings surrounding her seeing that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so that really, I
And
was
on
like,
his part too. And on his part
yeah.
too.
Well, the thing is that I don't expect him to not have those feelings. He didn't break up with her.
Okay, good point.
She broke up with him.
Right,
He wanted the relationship. She couldn't deal with with all the changes.
right,
So I expect him to still have feelings for Issa because he always has.
right. I will tell you why I think for Issa it was a lot harder, and but we'll get to it later. But I have an theory on why it was a lot harder for her to see them together. But so Issa basically says that she needs to be taken to Molly's apartment to get new clothes, and as it's obvious, and he says she said I traded mine with hers. He's like, oh, I was gonna ask, and so they get to Molly's apartment, and Issa is trying to decide between a velour blazer and or sweatpants for the hospital because she says the pants say I might be here for a while, but the blazer says the doctor might be fine. Which I thought was cute because that's probably what Molly would want to like think about when she's putting together an outfit to go to the
Hmm.
hospital, like how to catch a man. Nathan explains how much Molly looks just like her mama, and Issa said, "Oh yeah, they have the same ankles," which I thought was absolutely funny. 'Cause I'm like, but it's so funny because the actress that who I love the actress that plays Molly's mom. She also is in gosh, one of my favorite shows on CBS, All Rise, which was canceled last year, but it just got picked up and is going to be on OWN going
Oh, okay.
forward. So I'm so excited because I absolutely love that show, but she also plays the lead character's mom on that show.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Um, and so she's saying, Nathan saying, I didn't know that she had a dog. And we see Molly's dog, Flavor Flav, comes and walks
The
up to
dog.
him. And Issa says, oh, yeah, him. She loves him. And we know that
It's
Issa
my
has
dog.
a love hate relationship with Flavor Flav. I don't think he hates her. She more just is
She
not
just hates him. I mean, that dog didn't do nothing to Issa.
right. Nathan says, wait, he has no food or water. Don't he need to go to the bathroom at some point? Issa says, he's a house dog. I'm sure he'll know what to do. And Nathan just gives her a look. And see, again, this is why I love Nathan because he really just keeps Issa like on point. And she's like, fine, Peter. we'll take him for a walk.
I mean, he's a little bit more mature. That's the thing. Issa's still a little bit immature.
Yeah. And she said, let me go change out of this whole tire, which was absolutely hilarious. I'm going to be using them. I thought it was absolutely funny. I'd never heard that before. And Nathan tells Flavor Flav, Issa was really going to let you die. Absolutely hilarious. And so then we switch back to the hospital, and in the cafeteria, Molly and her dad and her aunt are sitting at a table eating, and Molly's aunt, which we find out her name is Kiki, Aunt Kiki, is on the phone relaying that apparently Molly's mom, Carol, couldn't get a word out. Nobody knew what she was trying to say. So basically, describing the effects of a stroke as she was having it to whoever she's on the phone with. And Molly and her dad are basically trading annoyed looks the entire time. Um, Kiki gets a call. She click another call. She clicks over and tells the person, "Yeah, that the doctors confirmed it's a stroke." And
Oh, just telling everybody.
he's telling everybody the business. And um, and basically, it's apparently Betty, and Betty wants to know whether she could pray for them over the speaker. Both of them look at her crazy, and Molly's basically on Kiki. It ain't a good time. And so that was funny enough. But then Kiki tells Betty just to text the prayer. Like, wait, we texted prayers now? I'm like, what? I thought at least, well, just call back and leave a voicemail or something. Like she telling us to text the prayer.
Yes, ma'am. Voice notes, everything.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Molly and her dad exchange further annoyed looks, and Kiki says, "Well, Carol did mention that Molly's dad and her were planning for their estate." And Molly's dad gives Kiki a look. Molly's dad then responds, "They were in the process of planning the estate." I mean, sorry, Molly gives Kiki a look, but in at the same time, Molly's dad responds that they are in the process of planning the estate, and Molly is surprised because I guess we had saw a few episodes ago she had kind of let them off the hook, but she really thought that they were finalizing the plan.
Well, her mom told her she was gonna do it.
Right. And she basically repeats his statement and says, "But you didn't finish." And she's about to continue, but she gets a phone call, and it's Torian. And I don't know if you noticed. Did you see that Torian looks like he had gotten a promotion? He's the
Mm-hmm.
one in charge of the meetings now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's Torian asking if Molly is coming into work.
Not Molly's bestie.
No, and she does say to him, no, she had told her assistant she had some personal stuff to handle. And he asks if she got a chance to finish that section of the rebranding proposal that in the first, I think it was the first or second episode, she had volunteered to do basically,
Mm-hmm.
and that their boss wants to hear it all before it's presented at the company retreat. And she tells him no, she had planned on working on it that day, but she needs more time. He does seem to be very concerned, and he does reiterate that Felicia is still able to take it on if Molly can't, and she just needs to know sooner or later, sooner rather than later.
Rather.
And that's a big deal to the company heads. That this is a big deal to the company heads, and Molly says she can still do it, just needs to know the latest he needs this by. So, what are your thoughts on this scene? Because I had some thoughts.
I think that Molly should have let Torian know what was going on. Even if she didn't let Torian know what was going on, she should have let her assistant know what was going on. I think she's taking on way too much, and she's might crash and burn here.
I agree. I thought, and I've been here. Sometimes when you're in the corporate world, you don't want a crack in the facade, right? You don't want somebody to have that little bit of thing that they could have over you. But at this point, her mother was still unconscious. Nobody knew when she would wake up. She literally could be in the hospital for days waiting for her mother to wake up. And instead of realizing, hey, maybe I need to release some control, I think she tried to control the one thing that she could, which is her work life.
Right.
And she went back to strong control Molly. And that's not who she needed to be right then.
Right.
And I understand that Torian is probably not her bestie at work. And at this point, it looks like he's more of a supervisory role now, 2 years later. But she really should have let him, or like you said, her assistant know that she's not available to do it. And she should have passed it on to Felicia.
Right, because it's better to take the L on this one than to mess it up.
Right.
And have it go wrong, because then you're really going to be looking crazy.
Right.
It's better to let somebody know, hey, I'm going through this. It's not something that you could control. It's not something that you planned or that anybody could have stopped.
Right.
So it's better to just be honest, let them know, get some help. Like you said, pass it on. And just maybe come back stronger on the next time on the next project. But right now, like if you mess this up, that's going to make you look crazy.
Right. And I feel like at this point, Molly has paid her dues at that firm. She has.
Absolutely, yeah.
She is pitched in, she is taken on, she has, learned to even work as a team with other people. I feel like she should have not tried to be strong woman, strong woman. I feel like she should have turned that over. But I feel like it's also kind of like Molly has changed, but she has not changed so far.
Right. I mean, she still has a lot of growing up to do as well. They all do, you know.
Right.
Um Kelly, my girl, my girl Kelly, she's trying.
She
You
is.
know, even
She's
she's trying to grow up. So if Kelly's doing it, then it's about time for everybody to grow up.
right. And Kelly's just on a different path, and I really am happy to see the path Kelly's on, because to me she's one of my absolute Natasha Rothwell has played the character of Kelly, Kelly Penny, so amazingly well,
Oh
and
yeah.
I cannot wait. I really, kind of hope that she has a spinoff, but I'll understand if she doesn't, because I know she did sign a contract with HBO to do further things.
Mhm.
So if she does, like, just go on to do not insecure stuff. You know what I mean? She's
Mhm.
been directing, she's been producing, she's been working on everything around. I think she's written an episode, so she's done everything on this show. She's, Issa has really allowed her and Prentice Penny to like kind of just hone all her skills on this show. So I can really see her going on and doing stuff for HBO on another level. But I do like watching the journey of Kelly from being like, the typical fat friends, fat
Mhm.
funny friends on this show, to a character of evolution, of
Yeah.
facets of different personality, that we get to see all her edges, like.
Yeah, I'd love to see more. I'd love to see more. I love to see more about Kelly, dating. Like,
That's
but
what I'm
I
saying.
wish like you said, I really wish she do the spinoff or get the spinoff because I would love to see more.
Me
Yeah.
too. And if you haven't, I will recommend a show that I feel like it gives me kind of that feel like this show, which was Love Life season 2 on HBO Max, um, where I don't know if you ever watched The Good Life.
I don't think so.
The Good Place. Sorry, I'm tired.
Mm-mm, mm-mm,
Good
mm-mm.
Place. So there's this guy on there who played one of the characters on there. He actually did the second season. So the first season concentrated on that one character, which was played by Anna Kendricks, and the second season focused on another character. Was entirely just like this whole new evolution of the show. But he's a black guy. He was initially married to a white woman, and then just kind of evolved of his love life. And I just loved, absolutely loved, and it was messy, but it was real. It was like you could just identify with it so much as a black person, because I was talking to somebody else, and she was saying that I know that he's like a black guy and I'm a black woman, but I could identify with his love journey. I said I could identify with his love journey.
Mm,
And so I think that's what we need. We all need like these characters that we can identify with their love stories, their love journeys, how they see love, especially as black people.
mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah. So we do see Nathan and Issa are walking Flavor Flav, and Nathan asked Issa if she wants to walk him. He's holding on to Flavor's leash. She's like, you've got this. And he's like, I was just asking. I wasn't going to actually let you do it. Um, and so we just see that I just love their relationship. I do. Like, it's so cute and sweet. And they like know each other. They know each other's limits, but they, kind of still kind of circling around each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's cute. And then Issa gets a phone call, and it's her mother calling her back. And she's like, she loved the message Issa left her. Uh, Issa says, well, she loves her. And her mom says so she loves her too, and that Issa's right. They need to spend more time together. And she asks what's Issa's schedule. And she wants to know what it's like for the next 8 Sundays. And
Yeah, she set herself up for that
Issa,
one.
Issa looks like a total deer in headlights at this point. And Issa's mom is apparently starting to think of a book club she wants to create, and that the first book they want to do is called "Turned Away at the Gate," which is a Christian series. Now, you know me, I had to do my research. I went and looked up the series. I could not find this book, whatever. So this is made up. Unlike the first book in the first episode, that book was a real book. This book
Oh
is
wow.
um. So, because I looked up that first book to see if there was any crumbs. You know, sometimes like the book story might give you crumbs.
Breadcrumbs.
Yeah, but this book ain't real. So she's like, oh, apparently it takes a while to get into, but once they get to the gates, that's it. It really picks up, and I'm like, so
Oh
I
my god.
nothing. You know that I've read Christian romances. I've never seen a Christian romance pick up, so I want to know what is this pick up to? What does this pick up to? Should we be worried? Because I feel like we should be concerned.
Oh my gosh.
I'm concerned. Um, and the entire time, Issa's just like looking at Nathan, like, what the hell's going on? What's she talking about? So her mom notices this, and she says, Issa, who are you with? And Issa's like, huh? And she's like, who do you keep looking at? And she's like, it's Nathan. And Nathan, Issa's mom says, who's Nathan? So this is how long her
The
mother
beans have been spilled.
yeah, haven't probably talked, but she's like, "Hey, Nathan," and Nathan's like, "Hey, Miss D," and Issa's mom asks, "Are you my daughter's boyfriend?" And Nathan, Issa's like shaking her head, but Nathan says right away, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," and Issa smiles and slightly, and Issa's mom asks him, um, to come over so she could get a good look at him. And
Yeah.
then tells Issa to hand him the phone. And Issa tells him, "You deserve exactly what you
Yeah, listen, hey, you stepped out there, sir.
exactly." So we all know that Issa's mom can, be turned, and she's played by the wonderful Wendy Raquel Robinson, who I absolutely love. And she basically says to him, oh, let me get a look at you. Oh, look at you. You have a nice smile. I see you. I see you. All Steph Curry. So we have seen Nathan be compared to Prison Bay.
It's Prison Bay. He does look like him, though.
He does. He does look like Prison Bay. And now Steph Curry, which is absolutely hilarious. Any light skinned brother at this point. And Issa dies laughing at this.
Oh my gosh.
And so at this point, Issa's mom tells him, "Well, Nathan, let me get your phone number," because Issa never picks up the phone when I call her. She's like, "But I called you." And I was dying laughing at this point because I'm like, and so apparently Wendy Raquel Robinson did a lot of this. She did a lot of this impromptu. So
Wow. Okay.
and a lot of
And I
scenes,
can see that.
yeah, exactly. A lot of scenes that Kelly does, she does impromptu too. But I love that about them. They just have
I
perfect.
love that improv. I love
Yeah.
that.
So she's like, "But I'm the one that called you," and she grabs the phone at this point before Nathan can speak any further, and she says, "Okay, it's time to end this." She's like, "Bye," and while her mom's asking her when she's coming, what time she's coming for Sunday, and then she apologizes to Nathan and says, he says it's all good, and she's like, her mom's behavior is kind of sweet. And Issa says he didn't have to do all of that. and if it feels too soon, and she says, he says, what, the boyfriend thing, and she nods her head, and he says, nah. So what do you think about that, this
Oh,
entire thing?
I love it. Of course,
Yeah. So
of course, I love it.
I love it. And I'm like, I really do think if it was up to, I do feel like I agree with you that Nathan was still like putting up a wall, but I don't think he wants to, right?
No, of course not. But then again, he has some issues, and
But I also
um,
think he's worried about because remember, I think what happened was when he came back for Issa, right, last season, I think he was intending that they were gonna go into this relationship, and then she friend zoned him, and she went back to Lawrence, right?
right. But I also think he has. But that's why I said what I said before
Yeah,
of how he has to understand of how he led them into that.
right.
You know
He
what I'm
wants to
saying?
go back to where they left off right before he ghosted her.
Right. And that's you can't do that. He keeps not understanding where his part in it is.
Right.
And so that's why I said that's where that little bit of wall is because he thinks he needs one with her, but he doesn't because
No.
she's not the one who ghosted you. She friend zoned him back there because she scared herself of how much she liked him. She was stalking him.
Right. Exactly.
You know, she was stalking him, and I think she kind of was like, "Wait a minute, now that's not cute." And
Right.
why was I
I mean, and
stalking this
Molly was
man? I
telling
liked him
her
a
it
little,
wasn't cute. And Molly was
right?
telling her it wasn't cute. And not that it was cute, it was just that we just knew how much that meant that she really liked him.
She
Because at
really
that point,
liked him,
she
and
didn't like
I'm not saying that
anybody
I have
as
a
much as
problem with her with
Lawrence
what she
at that point.
did.
Right.
Right? I'm not saying I have a problem with what she did. I'm saying she does, and
Right.
she was like, "Oh my god, I liked this man way more than I'm comfortable with, and he made me do some weird stuff."
Right.
And so I'ma just like
Back
and
off.
I think that's also what kind of pushed her towards the familiar with Lawrence.
True.
So, you know, Nathan really has to find, his part in it. But at the same time, I kind of feel bad for him because I know what that is with the bipolarism. And he kind of may be feeling like, well, what if I relapse? You
Right.
know, I don't necessarily want to put her through that, or I don't necessarily want her to see that. I don't necessarily, you know what I mean? So that's part of it, I think, too.
Yeah. I
Because,
think he wants to be all in, but he's afraid that either he's going to mess it up or she's going to decide that she doesn't want him anymore
right.
for whatever reason. Because I
Yeah,
think he
he's
is
really
so,
sensitive.
yeah, I think he's so used to people not accepting him, and even though she does know his disorder, and I think for the most part she's been okay with it other than him ghosting her. um I think he's just fearful that she is there's going to be a point where she's not okay with it.
Right. I mean, because look what happened with his cousin, and he really thought, I mean, it's
He
really
did.
not going to be a help now that he found out that it was his cousin that's, kind of did that, because he was thinking it was his cousin's wife,
Right.
um, you know,
Which is
and all
why
that.
I feel like he should have told him. He should not have let him leave without saying, "I did those things because I did not realize I was bipolar."
I agree, but I think it was the shock of finding out that he's the one that didn't want him around that kind of
Mhm.
it just shocked him. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
all he could do was like he was hurt.
yeah, and
So,
because I didn't disagree with his cousin putting him out. They have kids. He was keeping the door unlocked. He was coming in and out. You know how I don't like that stuff. So it's like I would have done the same thing if I could have, because um, my kids come first. You know what I
mhm.
mean? They like their safety and making sure that they're protective would have come first. And so I did agree with what his cousin did.
Yeah, no problem with it at all. No problem with it. It's just a matter of everyone has a perception in the
Right,
situation. And the cousin's perception of it was he just knew he had to protect his kids. He didn't know what was going on. He didn't know why. Nathan didn't tell him. And then here we are again. Nathan had the perception that, his cousin's wife had a problem with him. Come to find out, that wasn't the case.
right.
And so now
Well,
you
I mean,
got
it did kind of seem like she had a problem with him. Like at first, I don't know if you got that
good
everybody was
editing.
thinking that
Yeah,
it
a
was,
good
it
editing. But
wasn't
I
her.
think the reason why was because she knew.
Right.
And she gave him that permission, her husband that permission, put it on me. I
Right.
don't want you to have a strained relationship with your cousin, so put it on me. So at the
Right.
end of the day, she knew she'd been blamed for something she didn't do. So of course she's gonna feel awkward. You know what
Right.
I mean? Because at the same time, it's like, I know you don't like me. You think that I did this to you, but I really didn't do this to you. So even if I seem like I really am genuinely happy to see you, it's gonna come off as fake because
Right.
you think that I
Mhm.
did this.
Yeah. And I said she did what a wife was supposed to do. She took the blame. I would have
Hmm.
done the same thing.
I've done it.
Yeah.
Man, just tell them it was my fault.
Yeah. So we do see that. Oh, where were we? Kind of sweet. Wait, sorry, lost my place. I have so many notes. Um, oh, so then we do see that Issa's like, she's gonna be stuck in an 8 week Christianathon, and
Oh, yeah, excuse me.
Nathan says he does kind of want to know what happens when they do get past the gate. Me too, Nathan. Me too. But Issa laughs, but she says that her mom and Stanley, her mom's boyfriend, must be going through
Oh
a
my
rough
gosh, I forgot
patch.
about Stanley.
Lord Jesus. So she says that they must be going through a rough patch, and Nathan asks why does she say that, and Issa says because she knows that how she is ever since Issa's dad and mom got divorced. Her mom has been all over the place, and that she needs to figure out what she wants. And Nathan just smiles. And I did feel like, oh man, Nathan, don't say one damn thing because you
Apple
want to
didn't
make us
fall too far from the tree now, did
exactly.
it?
'Cause I know he probably is like, oh, okay, sounds kind of familiar. But I know that's kind of what he also loves about her.
Ah.
Because he does help, like, I think she allows him to feel needed, right? And, but he also just finds it funny, like pot calling, calling the kettle. Um, but yeah, I just thought it's so funny the faces he was making, and Issa, she also notices them, and she's like, what? And he's like, and Issa says, she saw that look. What was that about? He says she don't know what she's talking about. And I said, good
And I
job,
love how
Nathan.
he plays that. Yeah, he's good at that. Yeah.
I said, good job. That's exactly what you should have did. And she's like talking about it as they're like going back and forth. We see on the ground, Flavor Flav is removing his leash and scampers off.
Keeping it moving. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And Issa looks down and realizes Flav is gone. And so back at the hospital, Molly's family is in her mom's room with the nurse. And Molly asked if they could do a carotid Doppler on her to make sure that her arteries aren't narrowing because they could be, and that's what could be causing her to stay unconscious after the stroke. Her brother is, meantime, whispering in her mom's ear about her using the perfect amount of paprika in her dressing. And Molly's other brother tells her to sit down and leave the nurse alone. But she says she's trying to get ahead of this because WebMD says this. And the nurse says, oh, you're one of those. And Aunt Kiki makes makes a noise and lets her know, like, yeah, she is. And Molly's like, oh, the nurse is like to Molly, um, she understands that Molly's anxious, but they have to wait for her scans, and that a carotid Doppler is out of the question because Carol has had a previous stroke before. And Molly's like, nah,
Yeah.
you're mistaken. And her brother looks absolutely confused. But her father confirms that there was a prior stroke and says that it was minor. And Carol didn't want it to be mentioned. Kiki explains, why, Lord, are you trying to take her? Um, Molly questions her dad, and he says, don't get upset. Carol didn't want to worry them. And Molly's frustrated because she says no matter how hard it would have been, she still should have been told. And how can she help when things when they keep things from her and pretend like all these things are fine. The nurse basically apologizes and walks out. And I said, this is a nurse who's been around patients before to know that this is not going to be a simple conversation. But what were your thoughts on this scene?
Molly ought to know that she's busy. She's, of course, it's like, come on, like you barely got the phone call for what's going on right now.
Right.
Like, come on, like, don't take it to heart. Just try and be there more going forward. Like,
Yeah.
they're getting elderly. They do need y'all. And it's not just all on Molly. Her brothers didn't know either. So,
That's
everybody,
why
all
I
of
felt
them.
like she shouldn't be offended. Like I feel like she felt more offended
No, she shouldn't be offended. They didn't know either.
because
And
I said be offended if they told your brothers and didn't
right,
tell you, but they didn't like the fact that her brother was just as shocked and not knowing.
right. They didn't
I
tell
was like
any
she
of
shouldn't have
them.
been offended because obviously they were keeping it from all of you, so it
Right,
wasn't just about you.
right.
But as I said, through this entire thing, we see that Molly's trying to like kind of replace her mother's position in the family of making sure that things get done because that's the only thing she knows how to do.
Mhm.
Um, so then we see Issa and Nathan are on the street calling Flav's name. Issa says she only had one job to do today and was to help her friend, and that instead of doing that, she loses her dog the day her mom is in the hospital. And what I love about Nathan is entirely in this entire scene, he's like, he's sure someone has seen him, and that maybe if they have a picture of him, they could like show people. And Issa goes to check Molly's Insta and automatically vetoes the picture she does find because she says that she doesn't like the way her eyebrows look in it. And and Nathan, instead of being like, I want to ring her neck, he's like, okay. um and she's like, oh, why did Molly even post this? We're supposed to be friends. Nathan completely ignores her because, as I said, he just loves Issa the way she is, and he's just like, all right, we're not gonna get nowhere with that, and just starts going back to calling Flav's name, and mentions that sometimes dogs remember their walking route, and that Flav probably marked his territory on the walk that they did, and that he might make his way home. Issa shrugs and says he must be in and he says he must be in the area and they should retrace their route, the steps back to Molly's apartment. She says it's okay, but she didn't know he knew so much about dogs. And so this is the other thing that I realized in the fact that them taking this time and opening up more, we find out a lot more information about Nathan than we did, like, because he was in what, like 2 seasons,
Yeah,
and
we didn't find out anything about Nathan before other than he was friends with Andrew.
right,
He was bipolar.
and he was bipolar. So we're getting like lots more information about him. We've met a cousin. Now we're
But you
finding
want to know
out
why?
he
Because
had a dog.
it's not
Right.
all about Issa right now.
Exactly. And so, he basically tells her he had the same thing happen to him once with his dog, and that he and his cousin Thomas, I believe, had an issue with some kids in the neighborhood, and the kids let his dog out, and that the worst part was trying to figure out how he was going to tell his mom and dad because his dad and Issa's like, oh, but it wasn't his fault. And Nathan said, nope, that's because his dad always told him, don't let no one fuck with him or he would fuck him up. So he was really worried about him finding out that the dog got lost. So Issa says that's kind of messed up. And so we kind of getting more information about how Nathan's youth was.
Hmm.
And just by knowing this information, we kind of see why Nathan is the way he is. He doesn't want to show kinks in his armor either because I think he's so used to trying to be perfect, the perfect man for his family,
Hmm.
right? That's what it sounds like to me. Um, and he said, well, he and Thomas had walked around all day looking for the dog, and when they finally went home, the dog was sitting on the front steps, um, waiting for them. And he was like, he was getting ready to blame Thomas, and Issa said, "Oh, that works because I'm sure they're going to be blaming you if we can't find him." And he's like, "Really?" He's like, "Wow." And they go back to calling Flame. So we jump back to the hospital, and doctor comes into Carol's room, but only Molly's present. So he asked if he should wait for the family, and she said, "Nope, go ahead and relay everything to her." And he says the scans show significant damage with the possibility of paralysis.
Mm.
And Molly says, "No, test her again." But the doctor says if there was more that they could do, they would. The stroke was aggressive though, and he's trying to prepare her for what's to come. And so I do feel like this wasn't all necessarily Molly trying to take control of the situation. I do think some of
Just
this
want
was
to accept it.
that her not accepting is because like everything that happened in the beginning where they brought her to the wrong room. You're going to question this doctor relaying this information to you
Oh
as
yeah.
much as possible. But the fact that her mother has had a previous stroke, um it's all too possible that she's had a significant damage. So at that point, the family does come back into the room, and her dad asks, what happened? What did the doctor say? And we see Molly looking at her mother. Issa and Nathan are outside Molly's apartment building. Issa's on her phone. Nathan's asking what is she doing, and she says she's looking for replacement switch actors. Like there's such an Issa thing to do to go complicate an already complicated situation by getting a dog that's not going to be Molly's dog. But Nathan just laughs. And Issa says she don't understand why the dog ran away in the first place. He has the perfect life, including all the amenities that she doesn't have, which I thought was hilarious. And Nathan reassures her that they will find him. And just as he says it, he
There
says,
goes Flavor Flav.
yeah, he says, besides any dog named Flavor Flav is just gonna do whatever the hell it wants to do, which is point taken. But just as he says that, Flav approaches them, so he was right. And Ethan realizes how smart Flav is. And Nathan says he's smarter than you gave him credit for. And I feel like there's kind of symmetry in it because, like, we see even after that, she says she could not have gotten through the day without Nathan. And he's so patient with her, and that's why she loves him. And I do feel like some of what Nathan was saying was kind of trying to point out, like, I've been here with you all day, and I haven't left your side, and you can count on me.
Right.
Um, but I do think his reaction to this wasn't what she wanted because he just looks at her, kisses her, and holds her. But he doesn't say he loves her back.
Right.
And that's where the wall is still up. Because I actually can believe that he does love Issa in some
Oh.
way.
Oh yeah. I just don't think they were ready. I mean, he just okay. See, this is where I feel like Isha's irrational because you just questioned whether or not he was your boyfriend. He just said that to your mom. You just told him, "Oh, if it's too soon, blah blah blah." But now you're expecting him to say he loves you just because you said it? Like, come on, man.
Right. And then also think about last episode when she was, well, a couple episodes ago, when she kind of initiated something, right, to have him come over her apartment and then have him stay. And he was going with her pace at her insistence at her movement, and then he went just too far, and then it kind of messed up everything. So I really do understand why he did not respond to her, but I
Hold
do.
up, Tamika. I don't want to lose you.
Okay,
My computer's gonna die. So let me,
okay, no problem,
let me get my computer. I forgot to plug it in. Can you grab that for me?
no problem.
Um,
So we do see Issa joins Molly at the hospital, and in her mom's room, Molly thanks Issa for helping um, with Flavor Flav. And Issa says, no problem. He was so easy. And Molly says it kills her that her mother didn't think that she was strong enough to handle this, what she was going through. And Issa says Molly doesn't know that what more Molly could have done at that point. Um, Molly says something, and she could have answered something more, um, answered more of her phone calls, made sure that she was following up on her doctor's appointments and doctor's orders. Um, she she's upset realizing she was basically fucking some rando while her mother was having a stroke, and she's like, what if she doesn't um what if she doesn't her get her get married, and that's all that her mother wanted. uh,
I'm back. Yeah.
so
So
yeah, go
I
ahead.
heard what you were just saying about Molly's mom, and that's all she wanted her to do was get married.
Yeah,
Now, do you think that maybe that's what she was trying to do, like rush her along because she
I
knew she had her health problems?
I do. I think she had that stroke, and that's why we saw her have that scene where she tried to bring in the guy to get Molly, and that because I don't feel like any other time she was really rushing Molly.
Mm-mm.
But I think that in realizing that Molly, still, like, she had broken up with Andrew, she'd gone through these like entire change. She was in therapy. I think she tried to give her time, but then once like she was like, okay, it's been enough time, and I'm going to go. I want to see, she's like, oh, remember, she gave her a timeline. By the time you find the guy and you get engaged, and you got to get the dress, we got to pay for the wedding, we got to come up with the money. She had a whole timeline in her head thinking, this is how long I have to make sure I stay alive so that I can see Molly get married, which means she got to find a man now.
Right.
And that's
But in the same token, don't you think that that may have been her opportunity to tell Molly about what was going on?
she really should have, especially considering that Molly was trying to get them to do their estate planning, and she was pushing back on her. But I think it was like a little bit of, like, it was fear on both sides. It was fear she wasn't going to get to see Molly get married, and it was fear that if she starts, doing this estate planning, that's really her, saying to herself, oh, I'm going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so it's unfortunate because I think she did both of them kind of a disservice, because I think then Molly would have kind of understood where she was coming from, and maybe not answered her calls, right? Because I think that's what happened. I think when she started doing that, then Molly stopped
She thought
answering
she
her
was trying to
calls.
set her up on dates.
And so she put her, she put her out and was like, okay, I don't need this right now. I'm trying to concentrate on me and get me right and find, have fun and, center myself. And unfortunately, by putting her mom at arm's length, now she feels guilty for doing that because her mom was really sick and she might lose her.
Right.
So that's why I said I really am glad that she didn't just pass, because I think it would have been worse for her to find out this information, that um there's still hope. But I do think what Issa says to her next does help her, and what I hope will help her not swing the pendulum back too far. And she tells her, that Issa says, reminds her of all the things that she has done right. That she's smart as hell. She has a gorgeous apartment, a good job, a smart dog, which I thought was hilarious, and how
He's
great
like,
of
you
a
really are
job
doing a
she's
good job
doing
with
with.
him.
Yeah, you're doing a great job with him. Like, you're already parent, and you're doing such a great job with him. And she's like, he's so intelligent. And Molly said, yeah, he already knows how to use the microwave. And I want to know microwaving what.
But that's what I said. But then again, Olive, her dog food does have to be warmed up, but then it also has to be cut and put into the bowl. I mean, they aren't doing all that. So, what's the point in being able to use the microwave if you can't actually get the food prepared to put it in there?
So it's like, is it like a child when you have a child and you're like, okay, come press the button. And the dog just presses the
Has to be, because even if, like I said, even if it's that he's heating up his own food, he still would have to get it into the bowl and do all those things. He can't do that.
button. Right. Oh my gosh, so hilarious. So Issa reflects that, and I love this. That this it says that shit will happen, how and when it wants to, but it's out of their control. And I absolutely love that she said this, because that is Molly's whole thing, and her always consistently trying to control everyone, everything, every situation. She has gotten herself to be not a good person for herself and for others. And so her reminding her that no matter what they do, she can't control the world, will hopefully keep Molly on this path that she's on, where she's not trying to control everything. And I do think it does help her, because we see Molly say that she's right. She just doesn't want to be out the loop. And so we see Molly just absolutely be vulnerable in this entire conversation. She says she does not want to be out the loop, not with her family, not with Issa, not with Kelly or Tiffany, all the people who are important to her. And Issa promises that she will always be in her loop. And I believe that. I think that the patch they went through is probably the best thing that could have happened for their relationship, because I don't think we'll ever see them go through those toxic behaviors that they were in before,
Mm-hmm.
going through before. Issa asked if she's tired. Um, can she grab some coffee for them? And Molly finally says, yeah, that will be great. So we see her finally relax and allow Issa
To
to
help her.
further help her. And Molly does say, she's like, I'm never getting back that outfit, am I? And Issa's like, you already know.
Listen, let me tell you something. I was over here like, is that
I know.
Adidas?
I was like, it's Adidas. I want that damn outfit.
Is that Adidas? I'm like, no, I don't think it's Adidas, but it has the three stripes. And then I saw it on, because I kept looking for the logo everywhere. I'm like, where is the logo? And then I saw it on this arm, and I'm like,
Exactly. I said the same thing. I was like, I want that outfit. I was like, what color is it coming?
nice.
We love Adidas here.
Yeah, because I'm like, is that Adidas?
I was like, what? I was like, that outfit is hot, so I don't blame Issa for taking it. So Issa does leave, and we see Molly looking at her mother, and she does go over to her mom's bed and goes over to her and lay down on her, because at this point, that's all she can do.
That's it. There's nothing they can do.
And I'm glad that she does do that, because I think Issa did help her come to that realization that all she can do is just be there. And we see Issa walks down the hallway to go get the coffee. She nearly runs into an orderly, and in like the melee of trying to get around the orderly in the bed, Issa sees down the corridor Condola and baby Eli. And then, as she's standing there, Lauren stands up from the stroller. Their eyes meet, and they're both kind of in shock. Issa rushes off and stops at the next turn, but Lawrence is like kind of stuck in place. He doesn't know what to do with himself. Condola doesn't seem to know anything is going on. They're called into the doctor's office. And Condola asks Lawrence if he's coming. Issa doesn't seem to know what to do or where to turn. And that is where we end the episode. So, what was your thoughts on this scene? And I'll tell you my thoughts.
Well, I told you earlier, I felt like, well, geez, there's definitely some feelings there because of how they both reacted. Like I said, I expect Lawrence to behave that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I really just don't know what's going through Issa's head right now. And I'm kind of, just curious to know what she's feeling. She's with Nathan. She
Right,
loves Nathan. That's what she
right,
said.
right.
But that stung. That stung you see in him with Condola and the baby. So I'm just kind of, wondering what that's about. I know you said you have a theory.
Right. So my theory is I think the fact that Nathan did not reaffirm his feelings for her threw her out of whack. I think if he had said, I love you too, she would be a lot. I'm not saying she would be totally okay with the situation, but I don't think it would have shocked her as much as it did. It's not like she doesn't know Lawrence and Condola have a baby.
But they kind of look like a family. And I don't think that's what she expected because the last time she knew, he lived out there, she was
Right,
here.
right.
And, so I think that's what stung a lot too. She wasn't expecting to see them out as
Together.
a family.
Right. And I think that was also the thing. And then remember, season one, when they broke up, she had that whole entire dream sequence of her and Lawrence
With a
having a
baby.
baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think, when you have that thought process and then you see it with somebody else, I think I think that part was always going to be a shock.
Mm-hmm.
The first time they saw it. And
Well, I
people,
think that's why she broke up with him. She knew she wasn't going to be comfortable seeing that.
yeah. And a lot of people
I
were
don't think it was about his move. It was about the baby.
yeah, I think a lot of people were saying they were wondering why Issa and Molly did not come to the baby's birthday party, to baby Simone's birthday party. And I was like, first of all, it was a party for kids. But second of all, I'm sure they knew
They knew
that Lawrence
Condola would
was
be
going to
there.
be there with
Yeah.
Condola and the baby, regardless. And then remember, they came together. So
Yeah.
that would have like upset her even more to see that. I don't even think she would have fathomed that, to see them come together
Right.
with the baby. She probably thought she was just going to have to see them there together taking care of the baby. So just seeing them together with the baby, like offset, was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree. I think it was just shocking for her. Um, but we do see in the next scenes that she does stop them. And I wonder what she is going to say to them and what they'll say to her. I can't even imagine it, actually. I really can't.
I
Um,
think she's gonna say congratulations. The baby's so cute. You know how Issa is.
mhm.
So I
I,
think that she's gonna try and face the situation
mhm.
and face it diplomatically and keep it moving.
I think normally she would not have faced the situation. I think she would have kept running. But I think
No,
it's just
then now she
clarity.
would. Yeah,
Yeah,
normally she wouldn't face it, but like you know how she is. Like if she is faced with something, like she's not gonna really like run. She's gonna kind of like put on a smile or make a joke about it and then keep it moving. You know what I'm saying?
right.
But yeah, normally she wouldn't like walk up to them. Like you know what I mean? Something would have to definitely like
Make
come
her
into
run
her
into
space,
them.
into her
Yeah,
face.
exactly.
Yeah, but I wouldn't normally expect her to walk up to them and say something, but I would expect her to be diplomatic. She's always, kind of just take whatever, even if it hurts her. You know what I mean? Like, so.
Um, and then we see she'll go into a store, and apparently Crenshaw is there running his mouth, giving her a bad rap. Oh, what's your thoughts on the Crenshaw situation?
I mean, even though she ended up being wrong, I don't feel as though she was. I feel like he's wrong. You know what I'm saying? He's
Right,
not giving her the opportunity to really see where she was coming from.
right,
And just because it turned out being right and fine, but see where she was coming from. She was just trying to make sure you weren't missing out on the opportunity because they were going to ask you all together. And not for nothing, if she didn't do what she did, he wouldn't have had the opportunity to show show
And
up and still do what he wanted to do. He was going to be axed. It
right,
wasn't going to be him. It was going
right.
to be somebody else altogether. So he fails to realize that. Had she not made some sort of agreement with them, he wouldn't have been there at all to even decide to
To
still
even
throw those two
decide to still
segments
do
in.
exactly, exactly.
So that's why I feel like that's really fouling him. And he's not. And I feel like she needs to man up
Mm-hmm.
and say something to him and put him in his place. And everybody keeps telling her not to say nothing to him, not to say nothing to him, not to do. No, I think she should say something to him.
Right.
And he's got to stop because he's wrong. Again, he was right. Blew his mind. They loved it. Whatever. Artists are like that. But
Right.
at the end, don't act like she didn't do nothing for
Nothing
you.
for you.
Come on, stop it.
Exactly. I agree. Um, and so we do see that she will go, and it looks like to make amends to him. And I did, I on the Bald and the Beautiful, which is another YouTube show with Kev on Stage, Mrs. Kev on Stage, Angel, that chick Angel,
Mm-hmm.
and Marcus Tanksley. They had said that they feel like she needs to do like one of those business moves where they just like she goes and smooch things over, like and just kind of makes amends. So I'm wondering if that's what she's gonna do. Um, I think that it's gonna have to be kind of like for him because it seems like he's very ego driven right now. I think it's going to have to be a little bit of that, but also a little bit of what you're saying, kind of
Right,
like put him in his place, but
right.
also, smooth him. Like,
Right. I totally agree. But definitely, like, let him know because otherwise, he's gonna keep pushing his
yeah,
boundaries with her and kind of keep like
exactly,
stepping on her. So she's
exactly,
gonna kind of have to come with him with a little, you know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly,
listen,
exactly,
but
exactly.
at the same time, like, I'm in your corner. Like, why would I go through any of this? I'm trying to help you out. So of course, like, make him understand, like, hey, I'm in this with you. I'm
Right.
just trying to, but don't
Like,
do that
like
to
at
me.
this
Like, you're
point,
not just
he's
gonna be
already
keeping my back in while I'm trying to
exactly.
help you.
Like at this point, he's already had his first show. He already got support. It already did well. So now he can do whatever he wants to with the next show and the next sponsor.
Right. But he would have never had that chance if not for Issa, and he's gonna have to acknowledge that. And by
Exactly.
him telling her I was fine before. Yeah, but you didn't do that show before you didn't get signed by these people before you met her. So
Absolutely. And then we see also Molly apparently finds a watch in her bed and she doesn't seem to know who it's attached to and asks her coworkers if they know whose it is. So I kind of want to see where that goes because it's kind of funny. Like, what did she just again sleep with some random guy? So
but
I
my
don't
thing
know
is, why is she asking the coworkers?
because it must be somebody either in the office or a client or somebody. Or maybe they're at the retreat. I just figured it out.
Oh, that's right.
Ooh, okay. Just figured it out. They're at the retreat. um, and then we see Nathan gets in a fight with his partner in the barbershop over it looks like a client. And the his partner kind of throws out there his diagnosis. It's a way to get him, and we'll have to see how he reacts to that. Which I don't like that for him. He's still very Nathan's a sensitive guy. He's still very sensitive about the stuff that he's going through. It's obvious that his diagnosis has not been that long in the since he's gotten it. But he's still, I think, still evolving into I've got bipolar disorder and what does that mean for him. So when you're trying to work with somebody and you have this business with them, for them to just like throw that out, it's like it just creates distrust.
Or for anybody to throw it out because it's not something I can control. This is not something I did to myself. This is not something that I don't have any control over it. So for you to throw it in my face, it's foul.
Yeah. So that will be the next episode on Sunday. And we are past the halfway point, people. This is it. Next, like I don't know how I agree with Nigel. I don't know how they're going to end this. I don't know where they're going with it. I don't know who Asa is going to end up with. I don't know if she's going to end up with Nathan. I don't know if she's going to end up with Lawrence. I don't know if she's going to end up by herself. I don't know if it's going to be somebody new. But I am still excited to watch it and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, they still keep coming with the surprises, so.
Yeah, I really do like how this season is going. I know a lot of people have been saying they're not really fond of all this growth, but you know what? Like it's a like I think that's the one thing that Issa has always done with her shows is we're not supposed to be comfortable. Like I don't think we've ever watched the show being comfortable with what we're seeing. We've had fights, we've had arguments, and now we're in an uncomfortable space.
I can't understand why anybody would be upset about growth. I mean, that's what you want to see. That's the natural progression of each season in a show. Otherwise, what's the point?
Right.
I don't want to see the same stuff every single episode. I want to see some progression.
And I feel like we've gone through seasons. Like the first season, Issa was in a stable relationship, and then that ended. In the second season, both her and Lawrence were going through, and Molly were going through their period of rebound and trying to find new people and kind of going through that period that you are in your late 20s when you're like, oh my gosh, like, is this what dating is? And then it's kind of evolved into all of them kind of this resurgence in their careers, like building their careers, creating their careers. And
Hmm.
now we see that okay, their career paths are kind of laid out for them, and they know what they're going to do. But like what do relationships in your 30s look like at this point? You're past your late 20s, and relationships in your 30s, can you build a strong lasting relationship? So that is what we're going to see. So I'm not sure what people I like. I know people think that, oh, this should be either comedy, but to me this is a dramedy, meaning there's drama
Yeah,
and comedy. It's always been that way. That's always
closer
what
to
we.
real life.
Exactly. It is close to real life. And I for one like real life and real life stories, and the ability to see my story. There's times I've identified with Molly, there's times I've identified with Issa, there's times I've identified with Lawrence, in the situations they're in. And I like that. I know not everybody likes realism, but listen, she didn't give us COVID, so she said she specifically did not do COVID. She makes
Right,
it
there was
seem
no
like it
COVID.
never happened. Yeah. So, and we, the show I recommended, Love Life, season 2, they did show us COVID, and I could identify with that, trying to date during COVID. So it's kind of like, as people, we want to see our real, authentic, true stories on TV. I think that's how we should get them, but everybody doesn't agree. But I want to thank you, Nigel, for coming on to my show today, and
Yeah,
hopefully
you're
you'll
welcome.
be able to join me for another show before the season ends. And to everybody who's watching, let me see. Remember to follow me at Entertainment in Color, at Entertainment in Color on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. Everywhere. Follow me everywhere. And Nigel, where can they follow you? And tell them what you do.
Oh, I'm an insurance agent, so they can follow me at Joel Insurance Agency on uh, Twitter and on Instagram. And you
And
can also find me at Joel Insurance Agency on Facebook.
yes, Nigel's well versed in all different types of insurance possibilities and wills and all sorts of stuff. So
Yeah.
so if you want to, considering the episode that we just came, estate planning is big,
Yes,
insurance
it is.
planning is big, healthcare
Very important.
and other types of insurance. So, hit up Nigel for that information, and she'll be able to help you. So, again, thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you on the next recap show. Have a good night, everybody.
Good
See ya.
night.
Yeah, let me end this.